And as long as you have faith to believe and you don't discount that word, you're going to walk into that. So it says, behold, I am with you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken. And he said, I did not know that the Lord was in this place. This is the gate of heaven. And so the gateway of heaven is over in Jerusalem. It's a huge portal there, and that's where the mount where they're all fighting over. They all want the Temple Mount. That's the portal. That's the place. That's the place where 2 Chronicles 7:14 was released. That's the place where this ladder from heaven was opened so that the angels could ascend and descend. And so we see that's a very strategic place, and he called that place Bethel. We know that he meets Rachel. He goes and he wants to marry her, but the father says, no, you can't marry the oldest first. And you know who was supposed to marry Leah, the oldest? Esau. The oldest should have gone to his own family and married the oldest daughter. So that was rightfully Esau and Leah would have come together, and then Jacob and Rachel would have come together. But he had to marry the oldest first. And so we see that the angel tells him how he's going to prosper when he's in Laban's land. He said, get all the spotted, the speckled, the gray spotted animals, and ask him if you can gather those. And you know the story, he does the little whittling so that whatever they see, they become. And that's a lesson for us to learn. Whatever we put before our eyes, we're going to be transfigured into. Whatever we focus on in our lives, we're going to empower in our lives. So just like those little goats, sheep, and ram, they became gray and spotted because he did spotted and speckled post. And the thing is, at that time, those were all the rejects. Nobody in the agricultural community wanted spotted and speckled herd. Those were the culled, those were the outcasts. But yet those are the ones that made him very wealthy and prosperous. I don't know about you, but I felt like an outcast before. I felt like the little gray spotted kicked to the roadside. But God's able to take that, redeem it, form it, recreate, renew our mind, anoint us, gift us, and then release us so that we can be prosperous and that we can be successful. And so we see that God did that by giving him a dream. And when he also spoke to him, he said, now it's time for you to leave this land, and I want you to cross back over and go back into the Holy Land. And so he sneaks off at night, taking his family, all of his herds, and Laban's upset. But he speaks to Laban in a dream at night, and he says, Laban, don't you say anything mean or ugly to him. Say nothing good or evil to him. But Laban takes off after him, and he scolds him for taking off. We're getting to chapter 32 now. Chapter 32 of Genesis says, so Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. So now he's getting ready to journey back in. He's getting ready to cross back over. Now the set of angels again that ministered to him before in this Holy Land are there to greet him. It says that Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's camp. And so he knew that Esau was coming, and he feared Esau because he figured Esau's going to whack me. He was mad at me when I stole his birthright and when I stole his blessing. And so he divides his family up, and he puts them back so that they can't, if he kills some of them, at least he'll have some of them. Of course, he put Leah out front on the front line. She was always his favorite, you know. So when we get to verse 24, it says that then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of day. And I began to ask God about this particular angel and why he was wrestling with this angel, why it was necessary, because I've always heard this was the angel of the Lord. All angels are the angel of the Lord. They all belong to him. But why? And it says, first it calls him a man wrestled with him. It didn't say the angel of the Lord. It didn't say wrestled with God. And it says, now when he saw that he could not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaks. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So he said to him, what is your name? And he said, it's Jacob. And he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. for you have struggled with God and with man and have prevailed. You know, we're always struggling with God. God wants us to be holy and pure, and we want to be sinful and slothful. So we're struggling with God's plan of perfection over us, his calling, his destiny. And we're also wrestling with men all the time in our lives. And so there's a wrestling process that's going on, changing us from the deceiver, the supplanter, into the prince or the princess that God has called us to be. And so he says, tell me your name, I pray. And he said, why is it that you ask my name? And he blessed him there. Verse 30. I want you to pay attention to this one, key in on this. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. He said, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And he walked with a limp from there. The Bible tells us that no man can see God's face and live. Just even entering into his presence. I've been translated into the heavenly realms several times, and one time you can't stand in his presence. You're like, it's just like an overwhelming love or power. It's wonderful feeling, but to see God face to face, you can't. There's such an unapproachable light. And you couldn't see past that unapproachable light. You knew he was there. You could feel his love. But I was like a rag doll. And I remember the angels came and brought a golden chair full of huge jewels so that I could sit in it. Because he said, Barbie, you have to go back now. You can't stay. It's not your time. I didn't want to come back to earth. Once you translate into the heavenly realms, so peaceful, so beautiful, so tranquil, so perfect, that you don't want to come back for loved ones, for friends, for family, for church, for career. You are just perfectly at peace and content. And he said, it's not your time. You have to go back. And I was like, but I don't want to go back. I just want to stay here. And he still, in his grace, brings a chair. Now, normally you would think you'd cross your legs and you'd sit like a lady in front of a... I was all over the place, and it was almost pitiful. And he said, Barbie, you have to go. You can't stay. And boom, back down into the earth realm. I was translated back down. But heaven is a wonderful place. And God's going to take us all there. And I believe in Revelation 4, there's an invitation waiting. We don't have to wait till we die to go to heaven. God has that door open for us to release revelation knowledge to us so that we can begin to see and understand the mysteries that he has for us. But it says that he was fearful because he said, I've seen that God's face and my life is preserved. Now, if you go to chapter 33, and we're going to end up in here, it says, now, Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and there Esau was coming, and with him were 400 men. So he divides his children with Leah and Rachel. And then in verse 4, Esau runs and meets him and embraces him and falls on his neck and kisses him, and they wept. Verse 4 is the reason I think that verse 24, Jacob was wrestling with Esau's angel. In order to get back into the territory that belonged to Esau, he's getting ready to cross over. He's asking for favor. He's asking for entrance back in. The angels haven't descended again that he had at first, but Esau also had an angel. And so he had to wrestle with him, overcome him in order to get the favor, in order to get the blessing, in order to cause Esau's heart to be turned to him. Where he meets him, he embraces him, he falls on his neck, and he kisses him, and they wept. And then if you go down to verse 8, it says, then Esau said, what do you mean by all these company which you have sent to me? And he said, these are to find favor in your sight, my lord. But Esau said, I have enough of my own, brother. Keep them for yourself. And if you drop down to verse 10, Jacob said, no, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then receive my presents from my hand, insomuch as I have seen your face, as though I had seen the face of God, and you were pleased with me. I believe Esau's face was on the face of the angel that he wrestled. And he said, I've seen the face of God, and I have lived. He says, here, I have seen your face as though I had seen the face of God, and you were pleased with me. And so we see that, I believe, that is Esau's angel.